Looks like we're live. Sorry for the hold up there for just a moment. We're having some adventures with getting my first stream up and rolling. So I figure I'll give folk a couple minutes to head on in if they want. Then we'll get rolling. All right. Am I coming through okay? Hopefully. Starting. So, all right, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about what's going on tonight and my plan. So, if you haven't heard, if you're coming to this after the fact, this is a live reading of the first chapter of my young adult novel, Introduction Events, up here. I'm still learning this stuff. It is in the last couple days of its Kickstarter journey, and which has been a wild success by any measure that I could bring to the fold there. So I am so grateful for everyone's support throughout this whole process. So we're going to read the first chapter tonight, and if we get some views for all this, and if people enjoy it and all that fun stuff, we may come back to do more. We'll see. Anyway, about it, I'm going to go ahead and get rolling. And if folk decide they want to join in, that's cool. If not, then we can catch you on the VOD. The goal with that, by the way, is I'm hoping to have the VODs available shortly after the stream here, but also on YouTube, also at WT Matters Author. So yeah, I'll get that rolling. As a heads up, this chapter does involve discussion of self-harm. So kind of be prepared for that as a content warning. And if you feel like you need to bail either on the stream today, or if you need to back out of the project, if you think that that's going to be a thing that'll bother you, I respect it. And don't put yourself in a bad position, especially on my behalf. So without any further ado, Introduction Events, Chapter 1 by WT Meadows. Part 1, Chapter 1, Leigh. Something slapped my foot over and over again. It was an extremely annoying way to wake up. I opened my eyes to blackness and pulled my leg away from the thing hitting me. My eyes adjusted and I saw the whirring blades of my ceiling fan, which didn't make any sense. What was my ceiling fan doing in my bed? How did it get there, and why was it still spinning? I took in the rest of my surroundings through a brain fog of my freshly conscious mind. The ceiling fan wasn't on my bed, and neither was I. My bed lay below me? What the hell? I thought before the molasses of my brain recognized the fan and I were both on the ceiling. Something inside my head snapped like a rubber band pulled too tight, and I screamed. Both arms and legs flailed uncontrollably in an attempt to free myself from my predicament. I succeeded in knocking a collection of books and glass ornamental pieces off a nearby bookcase. I winced at the sound of at least one of my figurines breaking upon impact. My mind matched the frantic motions of my appendages, grasping for anything that would make sense. Eventually, whatever held me in place let go, and I flopped onto my bed. A book spine dug uncomfortably into my sternum, and I rolled over to find another one jabbing me in the kidney. I tried to scream again, but the wind had been knocked out of me. I rolled over again and fell, clattering to the floor. There were more books there, but none were as uncomfortable as those on the bed. Air returned to my lungs, so I resumed my hysterical screaming. Harsh light broke through the darkness as someone cracked open my bedroom door. I saw the outline of the shape rubbing in my eyes and temples. "Dad?" I cried out. "Dad, is that you?" "Yeah, sweetie, it's me. What's all the screaming about?" He leaned his head through the sliver of a doorway. His He massaged his temples where gray was starting to make itself known. He was self-conscious about it and moved the hand around to his neck. "It's okay, Daddy. I'm all right," I whimpered. I didn't want to sound too pathetic, but couldn't help it. "Oh, sweetie," he began and stepped into the room. "You haven't called me Daddy in, well, it's been a while." His voice was cut off by his own pained yelling as he began jumping up and down in the dimly lit room. "Son of a damn it, anyway!" He hobbled back to the doorway and turned on my bedroom light. "The hell's going on in here? What did you do?" Bright lights illuminated the hellscape of broken glass figurines and books scattered all across the floor. My father continued jumping in place as he pulled what had once been the head of a unicorn from his foot. Blood covered the glass horn. He gritted his teeth and tossed the broken figurine into a nearby trash can. The head landed inside, with the horn broken off and clattered on the floor somewhere else, with wincing steps, he awkwardly hop-stepped across the safe zones between my doorway and the bed. He sat down and patted next to himself. I surreptitiously made sure my long sleeves were still pulled all the way down. I picked up a blanket and draped it around myself before sitting next to my father. He put on a hesitant arm around me, but I instinctively shrunk back. He got the hint and gently patted me on the back before clasping both hands in front of himself. I bowed my head, and red-streaked hair flowed across my vision in a rush. "What happened, sweetie?" His voice carried his usual mix of sadness and confusion. There was a distinct undercurrent of the pain and frustration that had been from being impaled on a glass unicorn, but the other emotions prevailed. "It's been so long since you've called me. Well, that. Are you okay?" I nodded, but didn't say anything. We sat in stunned silence for a moment as I watched blood form from his foot form a pool on the wooden floor. "Jesus, Gerald, what in heaven's name's going on in there?" My stepmother, Monica, glared from the doorway with one hand resting on one wide hip of the former beauty queen. She surveyed the wreckage of the room and the trail of my father's blood leading from the door frame where his other hand rested. "It's nothing, Monica. Don't worry about it," my father offered. His response didn't mean he would side with me, but he would stand between his wife and me. "Looks like you killed a chicken in there, Gerald," she chided with her shrill voice. Don't worry, Dad." I tucked a strand of hair behind one ear. His shoulders fell just far enough when I didn't call him Daddy again. I gently patted him on the back as I continued. "I'll clean this mess up. I'm okay. Seriously, I'm fine. Take care of your foot and get on back to bed. If you say so, sweetie." He leaned over and gave me a short peck on the top of my head. "I'll bring you a towel or something and something to sweep up that glass. See you in a second." I nodded and the black hair draped across my eyes. I stared at nothing through my obscured view of the floor until my father returned. He knocked twice on the open door before hobbling back in. I wasn't sure how long he was gone, but he was sporting a bandage that he had already bled through. He placed an old towel, brush, and dustpan against the wall inside my room. "We're going to get through it, sweetie. I don't know what all this is, but we'll make it through. I promise." He offered on his way back out the door. After a brief pause, he continued. "I mean, what the hell happened? I'm trying to be cool, supportive dad here, but still, right?" "Sure thing, Dad." I offered a non-committal shrug. "I had a pretty rough nightmare. Don't worry, though. I'll get this all cleaned up. Try to get some more sleep before school, he said, closing the door behind himself. I took a deep breath from before looking over the carnage. How had I ended up on my ceiling? Did that really even happen? Was I losing my mind? There was no way I could get back to sleep with my mind racing. There was also blood on my floor. I had developed an almost Pavlovian instinct to clean blood whenever I saw it. Before scrunching up my sleeves up past my elbows, where white lines stood out against my pale skin, I made sure the door was still closed. Neither my dad or the woman who still thought she was a trophy wife would make their way back in unnoticed. I got to the business of wiping my father's blood off the floor, sweeping up the broken glass of fallen figurines, and piling up my books. It was close enough to my usual ritual that my mind didn't focus on the events of the night. I didn't let myself think too much about how I ended up on the ceiling. That way madness lies, I muttered to myself. I discovered the gleaming horn of my fallen unicorn. There was no blood on it, which surprised me. Saw my dad pull the unicorn's head from his foot, and I got up to explore a hunch. I carefully dug around inside the trash can until I found the rest of the unicorn's head. The neck was bloody from where a jagged portion of it had lodged in my father's foot. I'd simply assumed it was the horn that he pulled out, that he pulled the whole thing loose. I tossed the bloody glass neck back into the can and wiped off my hand with another towel, but my eyes were transfixed on the horn. I stared at its tip, and my breath caught. The gleaming, translucent sharpness spoke to the thing deep inside me, the thing that sometimes made its way out through the lines of my arms, the thing that would quiet down as I cleaned up after each ritualistic letting. That horn would be perfect. It was a thing of beauty requiring respect and attention to create just the right amount of pressure and no more. But before I could use it, I had to clean it. Even though it wasn't covered in my dad's blood, any tools I had used had to be absolutely clean. I pulled out a fresh bleach wipe and methodically wiped it around the horn over and over before drying it on a piece of clean, unused cloth. I had the perfect place for the horn in a small box, hidden in one of my shelves. If anyone came across it, there would only be one unifying feature of the contents. Everything had at least one very sharp edge. It wouldn't do for anyone to find that particular box. The questions might cause weren't ones I wanted to deal with. Even the thought of it caused my arms to itch above the elbow, and I shoved the urge away. There was no time to properly deal with the itch. I put the horn in the box, returned it to a secret spot, and resumed cleaning. By the time I was done, my phone's screen read 4:23 a.m. I had to be up in less than 2 hours. Today was going to be worse than things usually got, and that was saying something. Water break between scenes. One more second. Okay. I woke again to a hand gently shaking me. Go away, I mumbled without opening my eyes. Sweetie, I know you've had a late night, but it's time to get ready for school. I let you sleep in a bit longer, but you still have school. My eyes jerked open. I slammed my hand on the bedside table where my phone was supposed to be. Oh, I heard your alarm go off a while ago and grabbed your phone. Like I said, I wanted you to get some more sleep. You're probably beat. You did what? I screamed. What time is it? It's almost 7. He sounded proud of himself. Isn't that when Marcellus picks you up? I thought it would be Nice to give you... Dad! I wailed and jumped out of bed to snatch the phone from him. I gestured up and down at my haggard appearance. What am I supposed to do to get ready for school? Did you want me looking like this? I already grabbed you a bag of Pop-Tarts, he offered weakly. The folly of his decisions started to sink in, and his eyes grew wide. Get out! I shrieked in a perfectly reasonable outrage. He ducked his head out the door without another word. I glared at the closed door and yanked open my dresser. The sports bra on top didn't smell bad, so I grabbed it and a clean pair of undies. I draped them over my shoulder and opened my shirt drawer. The shirt on top was a manga illustration of a woman holding an enormous axe. Next to the words, "All you need is kill." I slung it over my sports bra and fished out the long-sleeved shirt with cut-out thumb holes. I never wore short sleeves anymore, or shorts. My favorite pair of black jeans with the well-worn holes in the knees lay next to the dresser, completing the hasty ensemble. After throwing the shirts on, I slid my normal black, gray, and purple bracelets over the sleeve of one wrist past where the thumb poked out through the cloth. Not enough people in the closeted little town knew what they meant to call attention to it. And even if they did, it would just be one more thing. I jammed a brush through my dyed and damaged hair and popped in my usual purple contacts. I was able to apply concealer under my eyes and over the traffic light-sized zits that must have appeared overnight. Next came a hasty foundation without any of my usual contouring or eye makeup. It would have to do, since the beeping of my phone told me that my best friend Marcellus, Washington, was already waiting outside. I ran down the stairs with socks and a pair of monochrome black Chuck Taylors in hand and grabbed the package of Pop-Tarts my father left out for me. I had hoped there'd be time to do some kind of eyeliner on the way or once we got to school, but we had no such luck. By the time Celis got there, the parking lot was full enough that we had to park in the gravel lot, usually reserved for the sophomores with new licenses. Ran into homeroom. Just as the tardy bell was ringing, my Latin teacher, a man I suspected spoke the language natively, crooked an eyebrow underneath his unruly sprawl of white hair. Pleasure to have you with us, Leigh. This morning, announcements are just about to commence, he warned, shutting the door behind me. I'm sorry, Magister Smith, I gasped from sprinting. It's been a hell of a morning already. Stygian morning, perhaps? I would appreciate you watching your language in my class, you know that. Again, Magister Smith, I'm so sorry. I looked away. Black hair fell across my face. He didn't mean it as harsh criticism, but this was my third year in the man's class, and I had more respect for him than probably anyone outside of Celis. Magister Smith brought a joyous consistency to my life that bridged my time from before to now. Even when other teachers treated me as less of a person after last December, he never did. I loved Celis, but he moved here after everything fell apart, so he never knew the me from before. I sat at my desk sullenly and listened to the terrible video announcements. Thoughts of waking up on the ceiling tried to creep in, but I shoved them aside. School was a battleground, and I couldn't deal with distraction. While munching on my Pop-Tart, Magister Smith caught my eye with a smile and a wink. Something inside me felt lighter. I smiled back. Perhaps the day wouldn't be horrific waste after all. Well, that is chapter 1 of Introduction Events, which is live on the Kickstarter right now. There's a link in the whole situation. Otherwise, you can go to Kickstarter and just search Introduction Events. It will pop right up. We've got a couple days left on that. And again, I cannot thank you enough for supporting this campaign and the all of the independent artists together who worked to create it. If you enjoy this, please, let me know, and hopefully we'll be able to continue doing things like this in the future. Have a good night.